Hello, this is Blue Star, Explorer of Equestria, and this is my first Commander's Log of Distant World 3, Week 1. Or should that be basically the launch day following the ending of Week 1? So, This is basically an experiment because Distant Worlds 3 is just too cool to not participate in, and in some ways also not talk about as well. So I figured it might be good to do like a weekly commander's log of all the things that happened during that week. So this is essentially an experiment to see if this works out or not, because I originally had sort of intended to do this quote-unquote in character, but since I kind of wanted to use this as an opportunity to commentate and talk about everything that happened, that didn't really work very well. This is basically going to be a mixture of my quote-unquote in-character dialogue, along with me just talking about what happened during the Distant Worlds 3, and also in my so-called afterthought format, which contains mostly still photographs, but will contain a little bit of video footage from Distant Worlds 3, and links to the full versions of those videos will be in the description below. And if you like these, or not, please leave a description below, and that will determine whether I continue these commander logs. Regardless, I will definitely be getting back to the regular videos very, very soon. So I'm sorry if I've been letting this distract me, and I appreciate your patience. So, it's time for our first commander's log of Distant Worlds 3, and I hope you enjoy. I decided to try to aid any commanders that might want to ride down to the launch point system, because it was not exactly close to the bubble where most of human-controlled space was. Unfortunately, with everything else I was preparing to do, I forgot that I had set my fleet carrier status to friends and squadron mates only, instead of all, which meant that at least one other commander was unable to join our carrier, which was an incredible disappointment to me and the entire crew. But it is what it is. But fortunately was able to set the carrier status back to all, and that commander was able to join my fleet carrier. Although, apparently, this commander was actually a brand new commander who had only joined the Pilots Federation only a couple days ago. And while I was disappointed that I had only one passenger to take with me to the Distant Worlds 3 launching point, I was grateful that I was able to show this commander around my fleet carrier and show him his very first carrier jump. And with a few volleys of celebratory send-off fireworks, we sent our carrier on its way and soon arrived in the launch point system. There is a lot of preparation, organization, and a lot of things that have to happen for a lot of these events to happen. The mass jump was the big one, because the long story short is you have to basically get people into private groups, and you could only have 50 in a group before the game basically crashes. So all of that stuff had to be organized in advance, which was difficult, especially with people in multiple time zones. I was kind of bummed at first because I didn't get picked for the so-called organized mass jumps, where if there's basically only 250 people in them out of a couple thousand commanders. So, but fortunately I was lucky enough to participate in a quote-unquote community flotilla that was sort of just organized by other people. So the good news is I am very grateful that I got to participate in one. I was actually at the very front during the mass jump, so in some ways I didn't get to see the full experience of seeing the ships go bing, 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 and jump like they did in Return of the Jedi. But it was still a really cool and fun experience, and there was a lot of fun shenanigans that happened during, the build up to that.
Engage.
4, 3, 2.
Here we go! Let's go! Lift off!
Let's go!
I'll see y'all at the auditions, man.
That was
a massive amount of commanders entering the system.
6-7 commanders, 6-7.
This was my first ever mass jump.
Oh my god, I survived.
This was
Maybe next time.
guys thing.
The mass liftoff was actually kind of cool. I would have to say that, that was the most, I don't want to say stressful, but I guess anxiety might be the other word. Because again, I mean, a little Diamondback Explorer with all these other big ships around me. It's like, if I collide with them, it's gonna hurt me a lot more than it will them. I'll bounce off their shields, but my shields will probably get wrecked, so nah. But fortunately, that didn't happen, and it would have been fun anyway. But still, that was a cool thing to be a part of. And again, there was a lot of fun shenanigans that happened there, with like commanders jumping on top of other people's ships and driving their SRVs around. So that was pretty cool, and I enjoyed that. The thing I didn't enjoy was that, yeah, the community goal right before the liftoff date, which it basically ended like the day before. So I was planning to do like last minute engineering and all those things on my ships. We're going far, far away from the bubble. And for my regular fans, the bubble is basically, you know, the human controlled space. We're going off into like the wilderness where there's no stations, no supplies, no engineering. So if you don't have it, and if it's not engineered, you're basically out of luck, you know, is basically the short answer. So yeah, I actually brought most of my ships and modules. Why not? There's no technical limits to how many things you can bring on a carrier. I mean, I think the individual limit is 40 ships on a fleet carrier, but you could have thousands and thousands and thousands of ships and modules on the fleet carrier. And so bring whatever ship and, you know, stuff you want, because it's better to have and not need than need and not have. So yeah, I was gonna, you know, take full advantage of that. And that's what makes this expedition different from the previous Distant Worlds expeditions, which, by the way, I have not been on. But yeah, they were all pre-fleet carrier. And again, for my regular subscribers who may be watching this video, that they basically operate as a mobile base for you to operate out of. So they had to jump their ships to, you know, manually and individually to wherever it was they were going, which made for an incredible experience. But if you didn't have the time to make all those jumps, you were kind of out of luck. So that's why I really like this, because not only can you bring more than one ship, but if you don't have time to make all these jumps, you can just put your ship on the fleet carrier, and in a couple days the fleet carrier will arrive at the next waypoint, and then you can basically participate at whatever event is at that waypoint. And I have to say, after attempting to, you know, in some ways catch up with my videos and dealing with other real world things that are quote unquote getting in the way, because I do not have time to make all these jumps. Because yeah, we started off in a system that was actually like, you know, 2,000 light years away from the bubble. And now we're basically at Colonia, which is 22,000 light years away. And I've done that. And in my best ship, it took me 4 hours worth of jumping to do that. So it's like, ugh. But the good news is that if you want to do all the jumping, you can. It's like in the next, I think maybe waypoint or two, they'll be switching to that. But the fleet carriers will still be, you know, jumping to the next waypoint. So however you want to participate that way. So, the planet of death, I kind of looked at this more as being like a survival thing. It's like, okay, I have to land on the planet, maybe take a few pictures to prove I was there, and then I have to get out before something bad happens to my ship, because I don't want my ship to explode. That actually almost happened, you know, the first time, where it's like I tried to get a quote-unquote better picture by getting closer to the plume, but then Uh-oh, I started realizing that I'm getting too close to the plume. I have to get out of here. That was too close for comfort. So yeah, if you're a commander, you know this already, and I think I'm not going to bore my regular subscribers with this, but yeah, the short answer is that if you're on this planet at the wrong time, it will basically trash your ship. Fortunately, some of the commanders were able to create this amazing tool that was basically a clock that told you when the safe period was. You land on the planet during the safe period. It doesn't matter where, because let's just say wherever you are, you're gonna see something amazing. You get in your SRV, you dismiss your ship, and then you basically just sit and watch everything happen. And it's a pretty cool thing. Parapus, I believe it is. It's like, don't worry, I don't know what that means either. So it's basically, I believe it's the closest point in the orbit of an elliptical orbit. And at its closest point, it's actually super close to this white dwarf. And the planet actually passes through the plume of the white dwarf. You have to be on this planet for like an hour to see that. But once you do, it's totally worth it. So in total, I landed and got off the World of Death like 4 times, and overall, I would say it was actually a pretty good experience, because again, this is really what this is all about. This is about doing things you haven't done before, pushing your limits, so that you could go not only discover things, but also see and experience and do incredible things that you may have never done before, which I really like. So, roar. This is a great exploration adventure, so you have to be adventurous, so roar. But unfortunately, there's also lots of business that I decided that I have to take care of as well. So I went off to Colonia real quick to find like the closest material trader I could, because there won't be any, you know, at the next waypoint and probably after that. So it's like, so I went to a system near Colonia, traded off some of my materials that I know I'm going to collect a ton of when I go mining, which I'm really looking forward to, because it's like, I look forward to supplying the carriers. Yes, and I'm pleased to see there will be dedicated events for that, because there's a lot of questions regarding, you know, how does this work? How does this operate? Like, when should we mine and when should we not mine? And no, don't mine now. Don't supply the carriers. There's going to be dedicated mining events for that sort of thing. So, roar. I'm sure my regular subscribers are probably completely lost at this point, but even for the seasoned player, like, I've been playing this game for a while, and there's things that I've never heard of that's going on in, you know, the Distant Worlds 3 expedition, or things that I've heard about but I don't really know how they work. Easy to get overwhelmed with that, and while the information is there, it's kind of all over the place, which is in some ways good, in that you'll be more likely to find it. But yeah, it's kind of difficult. Appreciate the administration is creating a lot of useful, FAQs and instructions, and here, this is how you do this. And even here, this is the channel in the Discord where you can find this information, because it is very easy to get lost and confused and be like, where do I go? It's like, even where do I look for this? But yeah, they're doing a very good job of taking care of all those things. So, all I have to say is, if you want to participate with this event and not face, shall we say, bad people, that you have to be part of a private group. And last time I checked, there were over 13,000 commanders that in that group, which were all manually added by the administration. So thank you very much for taking care of all that. So, at the same time, again, the launch of the community goal right before the liftoff date, I think, was not a good idea. It really put a lot of pressure on something that was already in some ways a big preparation thing, and that it would have been better if that event had been taken place like the week before, because then we could participate in it fully and not be worrying about transferring our ships or upgrading our ships or doing these things. And I encountered this commander that he said he wanted to come on my fleet carrier because I was offering a ride. Again, I learned that, oh, this is like a commander that bought the game last week. My thoughts on this are like, you've basically signed up for like a swim meet, and I don't have time to teach you how to swim because I'm preparing for it myself. I tried to give him some advice or what I thought would be the best thing to do under the circumstances, which actually buy one of the pre-built ships with all the right modules and stuff, because it would have been possible, but to do it in the time frame of like a couple days, especially without engineering or knowledge of the game or resources, it's like, But again, I'm very grateful that someone found him either through the post or just randomly found him while playing the game, invited him to their squadron, they gave him money. He was able to buy a ship with all the right stuff so that he could come on, not only my fleet carrier, but Distant Worlds 3, and everything worked out. But I still feel kind of bad that I probably should have done more to help this commander, but I'm glad that in the end he got the help that he needed. So, there's this program called MetaLight. It basically gives essentially extra story to this event, because the good thing with this event, it is actually quote-unquote canon within the lore of the game. Frontier Development, the people who make this game, are actually supporting and are part of this event. That community goal was, only possible because Frontier Development basically set that up. MetaLight is taking that a step further and essentially inserting these extra missions and story that you can go on if you have the time, which at the moment I do not. Yeah, I attempted to do a couple MetaLight missions just before liftoff because there was a couple in the system that you were lifting off from. One of them was fairly easy. It's like, okay, go haul this cargo. It was kind of a weird kind of story. I think it was about this guy who wanted to like ask out this woman, but he's sort of awkward and weird about it, and he's doing all these weird things, and it was kind of funny, but it was also kind of weird and awkward at the same time, so but it was interesting to try to actually do that. And there was another one that was a scavenger hunt. It was kind of cool, is that some of it was that you just simply had to figure out, okay, what, installation or starport or station do I have to land at? However, some of them appeared to be more involved, where you had to land at a particular settlement, then scan one of the data ports, and then that would give you a clue through the MetaLight program to wherever it was you really had to go. And while that sounded interesting, I was in a rush to basically prepare for, the mass liftoff, the mass jump, and get my ships on the official carrier and stuff. So I quickly realized I don't have time to do that. There's parts of me that, I don't really want to beat on MetaLight, but because while its interface is really simple, I find it doesn't really work very well. I think it's because it's using just these itty-bitty little symbols to indicate what's active and what isn't, and it's easy to get confused of, oh wait, I have this turned on and active, and so I either don't see the missions at all or I see them all, and it's just, I find it confusing. I think that the person has realized this, and there's actually a post that says, here, this is basically what you should do. It's like, set up like these main categories, switch them to active, and then you can use the filters to filter out the missions that you want to see. But having said all that, the program itself is actually a cool addition. I like what Metal Light is attempting to do, which is give all this extra story and things to people who want to and have the time to go do them. So yeah, overall, I think this is sort of like a quote-unquote earning your sea legs, or I guess should that be space legs in this case, now that we're kind of getting a sense of the way that this expedition is actually going to work. On Monday, the fleet carriers are going to start jumping to an unknown location, and when we get there in a couple days, there's going to be some kind of event or events for you to participate in, probably another Metal Light mission. Overall, I definitely like Distant Worlds 3. I'm looking forward to seeing where we go next and what we're going to do when we get there. So, roar! And once again, thank you very, very, very much to the administration and all those amazing commanders that have worked very long and hard to make this event happen at all. And thank you to Frontier Development for basically incorporating this within the lore of the game and making it more than just a fan-led expedition. I definitely look forward to seeing where we go next with Distant Worlds 3. So, roar! So, until next time, this is Blue Star. Stay strong, and in this case, explore on. Blue Star out.